Detroiters are a real special breed. We were the city that put the world on wheels. We were the arsenal of democracy in '45. We taught the world to dance with Motown. You know how many babies were made on Motown music? A whole bunch of us.
All right, let's set it down. Watch your dingleberries.
Once we get something in our heart and in our head, us Detroiters, we just don't give up. Blight Busters is a community-based nonprofit. We've worked on over 1,500 properties in the last 29 years. That's a combination of properties that we've demolished, properties that we've built, properties that we've boarded, and properties that we've restored. When we hand wreck a house, we attempt to recycle all of the concrete, all of the bricks, all of the hardwood. So as we're dismantling Detroit,
Tap, tap, light, light.
we're trying to recycle parts and pieces of it. It's more cost effective, and because we have a large volunteer component, we're not paying a lot of labor to do these things.
What brought me to Detroit was natural disasters. I was looking around the country for what was essentially a disaster but undeclared, and Detroit is the largest blighted community in the country. So I thought moving here would help both clean up blight and help us respond to disasters better.
And what typically has happened throughout the U.S. is these kind of houses were long gone and regentrified, but unfortunately Detroit invented the two things that almost killed it: the paved road and the automobile.
Pretty much everything I've known in the construction field, I've taught myself. I was in the insurance business when we started Blight Busters. My wife was pregnant with our daughter, and there was an abandoned home behind our house that turned into a crack house. My instinct as a father was to flee. I chose a little different path. I went to the hardware store and bought nails and paint and plywood. I raced back to the neighborhood, boarded up the crack house, a couple neighbors joined me, and that's really how this whole thing started almost 30 years ago.
When you're walking down the sidewalk and you're going to Farm City, on the curb line there's a bunch of trash. Did you guys go deal with it?
It's just grown into this organization that puts about 10,000 volunteers in the street annually. It's really the volunteers that create the magic. We knew early on, for us to be a success, we could not just as adults go out and clean up the neighborhood without including the kids.
Like almost 16, I was coming up here volunteering, and one of my friends I got a job with, John, we kept walking past the same piece of paper. And he was like, why haven't y'all picked that paper up? This not our area, this not what we clean up. It's gonna be our area, because this whole city is our area. I just fell in love with his enthusiasm about rebuilding Detroit. It put a fire into me to where when I started going back into my neighborhood, I started fixing things, finding scrap wood, boarding up these houses. It's infectious.
Our goal is to save the world, starting with Detroit. But Detroit's a big place. It's almost 140 square miles. There's no way a neighborhood group could clean up the whole city. So we decided to take 1 square mile and do our level best. This neighborhood was in a coma. If it wasn't for Blight Busters and the volunteers and the corporate sponsors, there'd be nothing here. What's got to happen for Detroit really to rebound is the neighborhoods. We want to make sure that our neighbors and folks that have lived here have an opportunity to be a part of that renaissance. We've helped over 400 people become homeowners. We've put people in business. We've helped convince others to invest. It's a place where everybody comes and participates on some level.
There has been a level of community on like steroids. I mean, it's family. We just don't want it to leave the neighborhood because it's important to draw people into a neighborhood and not take them out.
I've seen Detroit improve quite a bit since joining Blight Busters. You can't control your environment unless you really take ownership of your environment. And whether that's your backyard or your neighborhood, the more you take appreciation for what you have and what others have, the more everybody starts kind of working together.
My belief is if we invest in this city, Detroit will be one of the greatest urban comeback stories in this nation's history. We can't fix every problem, even though we try. But I believe we've returned a level of hope and commitment to this community. If you never quit, you can't lose because you're still in the game. And Detroit is still in the game.